Hey, hello, and welcome to another dev update, development update about the Zelda-like prototype in Construct 3. It's a project that I've been working on for several weeks now. I don't know, but one thing I know for sure is that this is the third video that I've made about this prototype. The purpose mostly is for me to learn Construct 3 and also to get a little bit more acquainted with JSON files. I know, very scary. Um, really never really used it that much, and with this project, just want to challenge myself a little bit and see like how I can apply it. It's not that tricky, but with this project, I am definitely making it more complex than necessary. Another thing with this project is mostly that I like building games, and it's fun to do, and it's tricky, and sometimes it's rather complex and difficult. And this project is definitely getting very complex, and I'm stuck. That's a short story. I am stuck. For sure. For sure. I'm looking at my watch not because there's an important message, but I'm setting a timer for 30 minutes. I'm gonna try my best. I'm stuck, but also, that's the usual business with game development. Not, it's not in a bad way, but maybe in a frustrating way. But still, even if it's frustrating, I like it. But one of the things with this project is also me trying to build a Zelda-like game, and it's always something that I wanted to do, and that is why we're here. So the tricky part right now is that there's just simply not that much progress to show, but that's the tricky. That's definitely the tricky part with game development. There's not much to show, but actually a lot has changed, and that's the frustrating part as well. Let's just get in it and show what is happening, and why things are so complicated right now, and little bit, just small steps. So let's just go over the prototype in its current state. So not much has changed on the official stuff. And for those who don't know, my focus right now is definitely not making the graphical, focusing on the visuals and the bleeps and bloops and the wow, this looks awesome. That's something for later. Right now, I'm just focusing on making it work and making a good foundation, and then actually build a game, hopefully at some point when I have the time. So this is a screen that I've been looking at mostly for the last, let's just say 2 months. I should stop mentioning the time. Oh, I do want to mention one thing before I actually start. I do appreciate the people watching those videos. There were quite a few views on that previous video. I appreciate it if you're watching this. Thank you. So, although not much has changed, there is an extra block though. I added a new block. So if you don't know, this right here is a switch. This right now is a slidey block, something that where you can actually push, out of the way, or something that we could interact with. And how the interaction works is something that I might have explained in the previous video. I actually can't remember. And we have a new block. Oh my god, a new one. And it has almost the same color. This is a pressure plate. And I've been working on trying to figure out how to make it work with the slidey block. And it works to some extent. That is actually the biggest change. Thanks for watching. No, besides that, some other things have changed. I'll try my best to explain it, and I really had to adjust some things like on how a couple of systems were working, and I iterated on those to make them more modular, or to, I tidied up some stuff because it was getting rather complex. It is still complex, but the readability is a little bit improved. It's getting there. It's not like where I want it to be. But with that said, let's just can I give a small recap? There's something like a trigger system, and items check are connected to a trigger, and they check, has this trigger been triggered, yes or no, and based on that, something happens. So the two square blocks here are items, and there's something here. Spoilers. It's a staircase, but we can't see it. And if we can, if we walk over there, nothing happens. Now I think if I pick this up, the staircase actually appears. Wonderful. I made it appear. Whoop-de-doo. But even though we can see it, we can't go in it. And that's it. Now you might wonder, why do I have to pick up an item and then, then the staircase appears? Like, that doesn't make any sense. No, that's correct. This is just testing out, can I actually do that? Yes or no? Because I could have the staircase check other triggers to make it appear based on the slidey block or the switch. But right now it's just set to the item. I should set it back to the switch. You know what? I'm actually gonna show it how we're gonna do that, and I hope it works. Live debugging or live development thingy. So let's just move out of the way, and I'm gonna go over here, and now we see this JSON file over here, and we have an entrance. I'm just gonna quickly show it. It's a type. It's a staircase. It's an entrance. It could either be a door or something else, but in this case it's a staircase. And yes, I have to write it down. I don't like it because if I make a typo, it doesn't work, but that's fine. That's fine. It has a spawn location. This is basically where it goes to, but this is the important part that I was talking about. It's a trigger. Is this item a trigger? No. The staircase is not a trigger. It could be. It could be a trigger. It could be a trigger for a quest event. Like if you went down there, in the staircase, something might actually happen. So if I want to make it a trigger, I set it to true. The other thing is like if this staircase is triggered, yes or no. Right now it's set on true. I actually don't know why. If this is trigger, we could set a timer, and based on that, something could happen within a certain time, and that trigger is switched back on. The important part is are these two that I was talking about. Is it hidden? It's true, because when we go onto the layout, we can see it. The hidden triggers. This is the staircase actually listening to triggers. If they are triggered, yes or no. That's the item. So let's just go here to the item. It's a lantern. That's the first item on the left. Is it collected? No. Is it triggered? Is it the trigger? Yes, it is a trigger, because we need that trigger for this staircase to work. So, I just added it. Is this a trigger? Yeah, it is a trigger. Is it triggered? No. No timer. Is it hidden? No. So the complexity right now is that I could actually make this item also locked and hidden, so that if I push the switch, the item appears, and then we pick up the item and actually go down the entrance. That should work. I'm not gonna test that right now. So what I want to do is make the switch the trigger to make the staircase appear. So if you can see here, there's an array in the hidden triggers, and I could add more stuff in here. I could add the switch, so that means we have to turn on the switch and actually pick up the item to make the entrance appear. But let's just focus to one simple thing. Here's the item. This is an ID based on the object category, the location over here that says LO, that's item in level 0 on screen 0 with the number 0. And you know, that's actually this item and a 0. And you know, it's based on this level. Is it a trigger? Yes, we need this to be a trigger because, you know, this is actually listening to the trigger. But I don't want that. I want to connect it to the switch. So it is already a trigger. So this is switch, and I only have one switch. So I think what I could do is actually right down here is the switch. I don't like that, you know, that I have to write it down, you know, because of typos. But it's my own project. There's no other way to do this. Let's just test it out. This should work. Because I was working on the triggers today and all the objects and how you can interact with them. If I pick up this item, it doesn't appear. We do have a switch here. I turn it on, and there it is. Oh, I'm cheating. Let's do that again, because I wasn't showing it. Oh, dude. So if I pick up the item, there's nothing there. And I can't interact with the staircase. If I press the switch, it is there. I definitely need to add something like a small system for audio effects. Don't want to bother with it right now, but it is getting there. I tried to postpone that stuff, but I feel like I need to do it just to get some feedback as well. So I can't enter the staircase, but what I could do is push that block. That means it is unlocked. Because as you can see here, the unlock trigger is based on the pressure plate with that location, the same way how that item actually works. Then we go in here, then we're in a different world, and now we can get here, and there we go. And the staircase still works. But that is not how it should actually work. Now I do want to test something out, live debugging. Yeah, okay, now it doesn't work anymore, but I think if I push it away, it doesn't work anymore. If I push it down, will it work again? Oh, okay, that's nice. That's nice. Very nice. It is not completely working like as it should be, but that's the a basic quick overview about the triggers. Why was I talking about the triggers again? Oh yeah, that is just basically it. But the problem is that let's just rebuild this again, because this has been breaking my brain a little bit. I changed the way how the interactions work, but also interactions are kind of categorized in a certain way right now. I will try my best to explain it. How much time do I have? 18 minutes. Wonderful. So the way the project right now is set up, like I am able to interact with the slidey block, the switch, and the pressure plate. Or no, that is actually a lie. I am not able to interact with the pressure plate. I could maybe at some point, but right now I'm not even interacting. I'm not able to do that. But objects are, and let's just quickly check if I can show that. So here is my code for the pressure plate. And let's see, this is the function to create a pressure plate. Let's just move that over here. There we go. Right. So each object, and this is something that I actually do want to change up. Before I start explaining it, let's just talk about one big change and then actually go into this, because the thing that I kind of want to talk about first is very important for this. The way in the previous video I showed that I for a world I have a JSON file called world data and object data. So the world data had like information on where the player spawns and like entrances, and another one for the player spawn. I don't know which one it uses. This was just something that, you know, that I need to clean up. The world data, or the object data for a world, actually contains this data. For example, items. Where does an item spawn? So we do have like a category of item. Then we have the information on the screen. This is on screen 0. And now we have an item that is being spawned with the ID number 0. It's a number, but it's actually a string. I know, but it's item 0. That's the lantern that we just picked up, and I actually explained over here. I was showing a new version of that, though. I'm getting there. So if I want to add more items, I just have to add some, copy and paste this, and then make it. So this, this creates the slide and the pressure plate and the switch. The problem is with this setup, it was working, and it is working, but it started to feel like this is not manageable, because often my thought process is like, okay, this is working for one screen, but I do have 4, and for 4 screens, filling out that JSON file might be possible, but I definitely feel like I have to scroll down, figure out like, okay, 0, screen 0, screen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It works, but I think at some point, no, it's not manageable at all. Like, there's just too much figuring out, and it takes too much time. And I think that amount of time that it takes to actually find it, to make it work, or to have it properly in there, that's time lost. Like, my thought process is always like, okay, what if I have 50 screens? And 50 screens have like an entrance and objects and enemies and slides and pressure plates. Like, that's just getting way too complex. And the world data doesn't have that much information. Like, the world data doesn't have like much information. Like, there's an entrance. But then today I was thinking, and yesterday, like, why is the entrance in world data? And what is the function so far for world data? Nothing really. Like, where the player spawns, and that's basically it. And the entrance, I think I should consider the entrance as an object as well, something that you interact with. And these things over here are interactables, like interaction objects. That's how I call them. So what I changed, and that's the biggest change for today, I wrote it down last night and I applied or iterated on it today, is basically, and this might be very shocking, is that each screen in a world has its own JSON file. So this is just a JSON file for the first screen that we actually saw just a few minutes ago. That's this one. So what I did is actually the objects. There's a category objects and an entrance, item, slide, pressure plate, and switch. If I have more objects, or if there are other categories of objects like classes that I want to add to the game, I add them here if I want them on this screen. And I think this might be beneficial for me later on if I actually do want to make a level editor. I don't want to do that, but I'm thinking about it. But I'm not going to do it because it's already complex enough. Never built a level editor, by the way. But I talked about it previously. It's very low on the list. But this, to me, was more manageable, like having it on one screen. The other screen, let's just show it. That's just an empty file. Like, okay, in this screen, nothing spawns. That's it. And what I do want to do is change this as well or find out, it shouldn't be a big problem. But right now, enemies are spawned in this way, is that they are located in an XML file. It works. There are some pros and cons of having it in an XML file. But I kind of want this in the JSON file as well. But that's something that I have not worked on yet. It's possible in the JSON file, but there's some hurdles, but not a problem. So the biggest change for this prototype or this iteration of the prototype is mostly that I separated the data. And, once we, let's just see if we can actually pull up this this window, screen 0. So what happens if we go here, a new JSON file is loaded in for this this screen. And there are no objects here, but I could, if I want to add an object here, I could copy and paste it and place it in the JSON file that is, this one over here, or I think this is number 4. Doesn't really matter. But if we go up again, a new JSON file is loaded in. It actually checks another JSON file, like have we saved up the previous screen or this screen, then either, now let's start over again. The objects might change and the values might change. I was talking about like if a object is trigger or not. And so what happens if we leave a screen? That screen, like that JSON file, is stored into another JSON file. And now we go to a new screen. When we go to a new screen, it's gonna check the JSON file. Like, hey, have we been here before? Have we stored some data? Or it's gonna load the original, just the JSON file from the files. And it seems to work so far. It made some things easier. So that's the biggest change for today. Now, what I was talking about, and I'm getting to the function that I was actually wanting to explain, is that I have the objects like the entrance, the item, the slide, and the pressure plate, and the switch. I was just, before this video, a few minutes ago, I was working on the entrance and adjusting like how that was set up, because first it was loaded from the old JSON file and whatever. So once we go to a new screen, let's go to the where's the object manager? Over here. Right, I was talking about the pressure plates and such, but we're getting there. So once we go here, that file is loaded in, like the JSON file. For example, for the first screen, this is loaded in. It's gonna check, hey, is there an entrance key? Yes? Okay. Then for each entrance, we are gonna create an entrance. Same goes for items, the switches, the slides, and the pressure plates. Now, this works, but also with this, I'm thinking about, yeah, but what if I have 30 different kind of objects? Then this is not working. So I'm gonna analyze this a little bit more. Let's call it analyze. Sounds very professional. And probably adjust this as well, because there's some overlap. There's some small changes that, okay. This is probably working right now, but in the end, I probably have to adjust it. But let's just go over the entrance. So this is gonna call the create object entrance. And then we're getting here. It's I'm sending along the JSON path because it has to look at this. This is the data that I want to actually pull. It's setting the X and Y, the object class. It's an entrance, the type of the entrance. In this case, it's a staircase that's imported for the visual art and maybe for some other stuff as well. Also, if something is required to actually interact with the entrance, could be a key or an other object in your inventory. That's something that I've not fully implemented yet, but it is working for the pressure plate though. So there are some values over here. Then we're gonna create the entrance, and then based on the entrance, right now it is not necessarily an interactable object because we just have to walk on it, and then something happens. But we do have to interact with the slide and the pressure plate. But what I want to do is that you actually have to interact with the staircase or with a door, so you don't suddenly enter a door if you just merely touch it, that would be annoying, and I kind of want that interaction to happen. So we call a function, then it adds the interact object. And this is something that I actually want to talk about a little bit, and why stuff is getting rather complicated. I'm not going to talk about the triggers because that's something that I've already discussed and showed a little bit more in depth in the previous video. But the entrance and the at interact is not that important. What is important though is the pressure plate, because the way it was working is that in the interaction file, an x and y value would be stored, and then the object that is in that x and y position. And now you wonder, like, how do you know that? Well, because I do have an overlay, and for example, in the interaction JSON file, because there's a switch here, I know that on 3.6 there's a switch. So if I press J, that's my interact button, that actually checks in that JSON file, is there something to interact with? And that's how things are connected. Why is it working like that? Because it works, but it also makes a couple things complicated. I wasn't showing this the window again. So if you press J, it appears yes or no. There we go. But for the pressure plate, so what a thing that I actually changed is that, and I think I like it, but it's something that has been breaking my brain a little bit. Like, interaction with objects in a video game is super tricky. It's super tricky because it's not real. Listen, it's not real. A video game is not real. It's not actually a pressure plate. It's something that I call a pressure plate, but by calling it a pressure plate, it's not a pressure plate. I know, it's shocking. I was really thinking about, okay, what if we have a pressure plate? How does it actually work? And how does it know that something is on there? Like, if there's an object on it, yes or no? So what I did is that, this is actually gonna break my brain. How much time do I have? 4 minutes. This is gonna change, but it's getting there. It's getting closer to something that's actually manageable, and it is working. You saw the pressure plate. If I slide the block on it, it actually works. But the thing that I actually changed is that I am making categories of like interactables, and that's something that you could see over here. It's a little bit small, so I will read it. Whilst creating the interact object, I'm also gonna say if it's interactable by player, by an enemy, or by an object itself. Now, yes, this is breaking my brain. The pressure plate is interactable by an object because the slide block is an object. I, as a player, am not able to interact with it. I could maybe do that. I don't know if it works, but if I press this on, the way it should work, if I say, oh no, pressure plate is also interactable by the player, that would mean that I could walk up to it and press the interact button. In this instance, it's J on my keyboard. Don't know why. And then I could interact with it and then, actually touch the pressure plate and turn it on or turn it off if I want to. Or an enemy could walk up to it and press it, yes or no. But the pressure plate is something that is an object, goes on there, and then it's interactive. That object interacts with the pressure plate. It is breaking my brain. It is working, but it's breaking my brain. So that's something that I've been trying to work out. And now you might wonder, like, why are you making it so complicated? Well, I will tell you why. Because, and this is something that I really need to change in the game, but I'm not sure how yet. And with everything there are pros and cons. The switch is an object. It's in that position, on 3, 6. I can interact with it. In the interaction file, it says, yeah, on 3, 6, there's a switch and it's connected to this switch. And if I press it, I interact with that switch. And in my mind, on a switch, nothing could be above it because a switch is just a solid. I'm not gonna walk over it. That would be weird. It's a switch. It's something that's on the wall or on the, it's a pillar that has a switch. It's just a switch button. In Zelda, in that upper right temple, any Zelda, you got those light bulbs, or I actually don't know what they are. The balls, and they're red or blue, and you swipe, you hit them, and then you interact with it. You can't walk through them. No, they are a solid object. So that means the logic is that there's no object that could overlap it, that could go above it. The same goes for the slide. The block here. There's no, it's a solid object and nothing could go over it. But now here comes with the way it is set up, is that on position 3, 5, or 4, 5, there's a pressure plate, and then we have a block, and that goes on top of it. I know. That actually means it could overlap. It could go or it could overlap, and the way how it is set up, and that is why it is set like this, is that this I know it doesn't make any sense at all, but this is kind of how you could see it in different layers. Apologies if I'm making it very complex. So we have the player and an enemy and then an object. The object is a different category. The slide is not gonna be interactable with an object. Maybe with an enemy, but not with an object. Because there can be an object above the slide, only below it. So if we look at the slide one, let's go over here. That one is put in the player category of the interactables. I can only interact with the slide or maybe an enemy, but it's not going to be placed in the object. So an object, there could be only one value of that. So I have to think about it in layers, and this is how it is set up. I know it's very silly, but it's the only way how I could make sense of it. And I know by talking about it, I'm not making any sense at all. So this is the what I have right now on the slide. It's a move. Oh my god, it's a move. So once it has moved, it's gonna check if that object is actually able to interact with an object. So it's gonna check the category of object if something is there that actually requires an item, yes or no. So it's going to check the X and Y value, and it's going to send along the class of the slide and the type. So it's going to check, hey, is there something there that actually requires this? So it's the slidey block, and let's just I hope I'm making sense. The slide is a category slide, and the type is normal. So the check for interact, slide, normal. And then the pressure plate, in this instance, it has a requirement that to interact with this, it needs to be a slide normal, and then something happens. I could remove that, and then, any object that is on that X and Y value is able to interact with it. But, I was thinking about, okay, pressure plate, Sometimes maybe I'm thinking too much about maybe Resident Evil. A slidey block could go on any pressure plate because it's just a pressure plate. But what if I have a puzzle where a certain type of slide or block that I have to push goes into the pressure plate in a certain specific pressure plate because that one has to go there. Let's just say that the slidey block is the eagle's statue that goes into the eagle statue pressure plate, and then we have the cat slide block goes into the cat pressure plate, and not the other way around. And only if that happens, the door opens and you solve the puzzle. We got the bird, the eagle, and we have the cat. Caw, meow. Door opens. So that's why we have the interact requirement ID. So that is why we need that. So I was thinking, well, yeah, how does this work, man? Oh my god, it's breaking my brain. And by working on this, the effect was that actually caused the whole adjusting of all the functions and changing it up, because I felt like it is getting messy. So for the development update, there's a lot of progress. I changed quite a few things, but something things that are maybe not really visible, but hopefully by doing this amount of work, by changing it and making it a little bit more tidy and clean, it's possible to continue working on and maybe implement some more stuff or actually make that work. Because the other thing with for example, the pressure plate, I could keep going on with the pressure plate. I don't want to bother you with the nitty gritty and all the difficulties that I have. But what if a pressure plate could also interact with the player? Like, how does it work? I don't know. I could check the player, the X and Y, what I was saying. I will try to keep it short. That's a lie. So it works with the block. There's some side effects, and no, let's not go in there. As a player, the block, it's just a trigger event. The block moves, the move to, check the X and Y position, something happens, yes or no, then that happens. The player is just able to move around like freely. And one of the bigger problems is that I do have like the X and Y position of the player. Just, okay, I'm on this position. I could check constantly the X and Y position in the interaction. Like, is there a pressure plate? Yes or no? If there is, do this and turn it on. But then the problem is like, okay, if I leave that X and Y position, what happens then? So how would you call that? The logic behind it, like turning it on, turning it off. If I'm on the X and Y position, if I'm not in the X and Y position, and I've tried several solutions. I know it's not that difficult. I could do that with an every tick and say like, if I'm on there and if it's off, and when I'm on there, it is on, and don't change it if I'm on, but change everything when I'm off. But I kind of wanted to work the same way how the sliding block works, if that makes it clear. But it's really difficult to make a pressure plate. Something that feels like a pressure plate. Like, the block is okay, and I do have two options. Say like, no, a pressure plate just requires a block, not a player. But I think it would be fun if as a player you could also walk on it, and something happens, or you hear a click or something. At least something. But that's not something that is not something that I'm gonna do today, because I took the effort to change the JSON files to separate the the big object data file into smaller files for each screen. And now I'm actually happy that I only have like 5 screens in this whole prototype. But this is one of the difficulties with game development. Sometimes you work on it so much. Really, I spent maybe 4 hours on it today. There's a lot of progress, but I don't see the progress. But at some point, I will reap the benefits of that work, because it has been set up like a little bit nicer. One of the things, and that's definitely the final thing that I want to do or talk about, is that the way the objects are created is kind of nice. It works, but the one thing that I feel is that often the every function is almost the same, with some smaller changes here and there. One of them maybe needs a collision tell, yes or no. One of them maybe isn't interactable, but I do want to make items and the entrances interactable. If they are in the objects, they could be interactable in some way or another. But the problem is that with the add interact, this data over here, is it interactable by the player, enemy, or an object? That is something that's custom for, or that's for a switch. That's for a switch. It's different than a pressure plate. So what I'm getting at is that I want to try and figure out if I could just build one function that is maybe a little bit more complicated, but that results in me not having to make. It doesn't take a lot of time to build a function for a new item. But again, my thought process is, this is working for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objects. But what if I have 10? What if I have 20? What if I have 100 items? I don't want to make 100 functions for and groups and folders for all those items and doing those over and over again. That's just not efficient at all. So I think that is something that I'm going to take a look at after this, to tidy that up, to make it into one function, and maybe have that data, if it's solid, yes or no, in a separate file that stores that data. Maybe a JSON file. But that's just something that is for. Yeah, I think I have a solution. You will see in the next video. Chances are, in the next video, you will see the solution. But that's something that I want to work on, and hopefully I will figure out the pressure plate. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's getting there. It's getting there. This is below 45 minutes. I did it. That was my goal, 45. In my mind, I set a timer for 30 minutes, but in my mind, I was like, keep it below 45. Then it's golden. Again, I don't know if I did it in this video, but I just want to say I appreciate everybody watching these videos, even if it's just for a couple seconds or minutes. That second video had quite a few views. So, hey, 60 views is a lot for me. So thank you. If you do have any questions, or if you want to see something that's a little bit more like in depth, like, hey, could you actually go into in depth in how the triggers work or the interactions, how I set it up, please let me know in the comments. And with that said, see you all next time in the next video. It's probably gonna be in a couple days again, or maybe there's a smaller update. I don't know, but it's time to take a break and to chill out. Again, have a nice day. See y'all later, and thanks for watching. Bye. Game development. Love it.